Hello, this is the best top 10 manga list you're gonna see on YouTube. Number 10, I have a series that is super insane, Gantz. Like, there's so much that gets thrown your way in this story. There's a whole bunch of characters, a whole bunch of, I guess, monsters, villains, sort of, and it just goes crazy. It really does. I mean, even if you just look at the concept itself, when some random when some random bum off the street dies, they have a chance of getting teleported into a room where they are then forced to take part in a, I guess, sort of game where they receive weapons and instructions from a black ball. Like, come on, that's just so random. Oh yeah, and what's inside the black ball is a bald guy, so that's nice. And he's naked. Also nice. So after this random Joe gets randomly teleported into this room, and it's purely by chance, it seems like, their new goal is to kill aliens, and depending on how much they contribute to killing aliens, they get points. And once they reach 100 points, I forgot the choices, but I know the main one is to return to having a normal life again, so they don't have to keep on killing aliens. But really the main thing that stuck out to me wasn't, well, I mean, it was a lot of this stuff about how all these people have to fight aliens and just all the different aliens that they go up against and just the situations that puts them in. I mean, as things go on, like, the scale of it just rises and does not stop. I kind of wish I could re-experience reading Gantz for the first time because it was that fun to me. But the main reason why I liked it was actually the main character, Kei Kurino, and also my favorite side character, Masaru Kato. He's kind of like the second protagonist of Gantz, in a way. But you get to see right off the bat that this guy is the most selfless character you might ever see. He's so self-sacrificing that you can't help but like him. And I just really enjoyed him in Gantz. But now on the other hand, the main character, Kei Kurino, he's a gooner, to say the least. He's so narcissistic and just, I mean, the complete opposite of Kato. He's selfish. If you like this guy at the beginning of Gantz, then there's something probably wrong with you. But no, he's a very, poopy person, very shitty. And again, this is something you see right away in the first chapter. Like, I think some old lady asked him for directions, and he just, like, he's a weird one. He really is. But Kurino is actually the character that really makes me like Gantz. And that's because the development he goes through, the transition he goes through from being this very wimpy, edgy, narcissistic teenager to this leader. It's probably one of the best things about Gantz. I think Gantz has a lot of edgy stuff in it, and it tries to, dive deep with that, and I mean, it does. It really does. And, like, I do feel like there's a whole bunch of stuff here that, I mean, it doesn't really need to be in the story, but it is. And that also contributes to how crazy Gantz is. But the thing about Kurino is that throughout all of this, it isn't a one big transition. He has to slowly undergo change, and he has to learn a lot from his mistakes and from other people. He does have skills, I will say that, but it takes him a while to realize he should use those skills to, make sure everyone's all good. And it's only then that he starts being looked at as a leader, and it's really awesome once that does happen. And there's just so much he has to go through and so much he has to really learn from and sort of reflect to come to that point. And that development is, in my opinion, the best part about Gantz. But on to my next one, I got Clover by Tetsuhiro Hirakawa. Now this is probably the most underground manga that I have on my list. Actually, it is. To summarize it really quickly, it's a delinquent manga all about fighting. That's about it. This one is the most random manga I came across. Like, one day I forgot how I even found it, but one day I just sat down, started reading it, got through 400 chapters, and boom, here we are. There's this guy named Ayato. That's the main thing you need to know about Ayato, is that he really, very deeply cares about his friends. And that's a very cool part of his character. And I remember I made a video over it a little while ago. It was 2 years ago, but whatever. I kind of compared him to a shonen protagonist, which it really does feel like he is, because he's so about friendship that it's hilarious, but also really cool. And and why I think he's awesome. But getting back on track to the story, so he had this old friend he hasn't seen since elementary school, and after his grandpa dies, the person who he was staying with in just some random part of Japan, he moves over to where this old friend is and tries to rekindle the friendship, which he does. Keep in mind, he's in high school. They're all in high school. And so once Ayato moves over to his friend's place, he starts going to the same school as him, starts to live in this town, and who would have thought that this school, it's a delinquent school. There's a lot of fighting going on. It's very rough, and Ayato's friend is a big victim of this. And so Ayato just starts to kick some ass, and that's really what he does throughout the whole story. He doesn't stop with the hands, I won't lie. And so the story does progress, and the way it progresses is through the people Ayato and eventually his allies, or his friends. The story progresses as they have to fight more stronger people and more people, and just people from other schools, other towns. And I feel like this story does this concept that's been done quite a bit. It does it very right, at least to me. And so if you like delinquent manga, you like fighting manga, or you just want to see some weirdo who really cares about his friends, I'd say check this one out. It's actually pretty interesting. Also, I can't help but mention the style that all the characters have going for them. Like, I remember there's this one guy with the mohawk and some piercings. I think it's snake bites they're called. It just looks so sick. Something else I can't help but mention is my favorite character in this, Maki. If you read it, then yeah, you know who I'm talking about. He's the guy with long hair, glasses. I don't know, I thought he was pretty cool. But at number 8, I have something that's been very popular, and especially just not only to me, but within the anime and manga community very recently, Chainsaw Man. I had to include this somewhere on this list just because I love Tatsuki. Dude, I can never pronounce his name. Tatsuki Fujimoto. I love this man so very much. I need to reread Fire Punch because it's been a while since I read that, but I remember liking that a decent amount. I love his one-shots, Look Back, Goodbye Eri, and I am really loving Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is a series that I feel like really shouldn't work. Like, it just sounds stupid. Devils that have weird heads fight each other. Like, what kind of concept is that? I remember when I first started reading Chainsaw Man, I dropped it because of that, because I thought it was so weird that it could not tell a good story. But then I started seeing more videos popping up over it, and I was like, maybe I should give this a shot, and I did, and I am very happy that I did, because it is an awesome story. No matter what, to me, part 1 is always gonna be one of my favorite things, and part 2 has also been very awesome. It's built upon part 1 so much, and I mean, first looking at Denji, the way this series sets him up and the development and just the level of depth that goes on with Denji is nice. It's one of the reasons why I like Chainsaw Man so much. And so I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about Denji, that he's just like he is a horny teenager, but there's a lot more to him than just that. A lot more beneath the surface. And with part 1, Makima, plus all the crazy devils that come along with part 1, it's exactly that stuff that makes it such a great story. And the way Fujimoto writes, Denji's life throughout part 1 and how that sort of gets ripped away from him, it really is devastating. It's so sad to see. But with part 2, I've been really enjoying it, and I've even made a video about this, how it feels like more of a slow burn compared to part 1. But mainly that was near the start of it, because the most recent chapters, like 170, around where I am at the time of making this video, the most recent chapters, just I've been going back to breakneck pacing, and just maybe not even breakneck pacing, but just super insane things happening with all the devils, and it's on a scale that we have not seen in Chainsaw Man quite yet. So yeah, no, things are getting crazier than they ever were, especially with Yoru. Man, oh man, the stuff that she's just been revealed to have. But that's the other thing about part 2 is Asa Mitaka. When part 2 first started, she was really put in the spotlight, and she's probably the main thing that she is the main thing that made Chainsaw Man feel like such a different story. And I mean, she made part 2 feel like such a different story compared to part 1. But I think Fujimoto used her to build upon part 1 a lot more, and that's what he's been doing, and really just how he made Asa. I'm loving her, and I also love Denji, and just seeing these two in one place, seeing how they interact and how things have developed so far, it just goes to show just how awesome Fujimoto really is as a storyteller, as an author, as a mangaka. Why can't I never pronounce that? Mangaka. But if you want to read a really interesting ongoing story right now, Chainsaw Man is the first thing I would recommend. Which is kind of weird to say because this next one is something I also really like, and it's also ongoing. Choujin X is by probably one of my most favorite mangakas of all time, Sui Ishida. His art, even with just Choujin X, it's so nice to see him make a manga again, and I could never ever get enough of his art because I love this. I love his style. I don't know, he has this like sort of realistic style. I suck at explaining art. It just looks so realistic in a sense and so detailed, but he also makes it just look so beautiful, and he makes it fit in with his manga so perfectly. I feel like when you're talking about Sui Ishida, you at least at some point have to mention his art. Choujin X goes into some themes about finding yourself, like finding independence and self-confidence, and it does go into some other stuff, but you pair that with a very crazy power system where people become superhumans. You know, they become Choujins. It makes for a pretty interesting manga. To explain what a Choujin is, it's pretty much someone who has, again, superpowers, something along those lines. Like, there's this girl that can turn into a snake, Tokyo. He gets injected with a serum that makes him turn into a vulture. But you also have people who have very weird abilities. Like, there's this guy who looks like Cthulhu, and I kind of forget what he does exactly. But I know what was I gonna say? Tokyo's mentor type of person is a guy, he could like make you hallucinate, something along those lines. I forget exactly how it is with him. But to say the least, there's a whole bunch of different abilities that all these people have. And I don't know, just that concept of finding yourself and, you know, trying to do good in the world is something that kind of resonated with me. And honestly, I didn't think I'd like Choujin X as much as I was going to. I knew I was gonna like it because it's by Sui Ishida, but I don't know, I was surprised that, you know, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that Sui Ishida is such a good author, but I was. I'm sorry. I underestimated you, Sui Ishida, which is a very bad thing to say for me, especially with some of the manga I have on this list. Slam Dunk is a series that is very popular. It's sparked a whole bunch of videos to come out over Takehiko Inoue and just the series in general. It's very popular, at least from what I hear. It's very popular in Japan. One of the craziest things that I've heard about it is that it breathed a new life into basketball in Japan. I heard before this series, you know, basketball is always gonna be popular, but I heard Slam Dunk made basketball blow up in Japan at some point when it was releasing, and I think that's awesome. One of the main things I really like about the series is that it really showcases the art of, maybe not the art, but just doing a sport, playing a sport, and it shows like the drive and the motivation that you get from, I don't know, just the feeling you get from wanting to be better. And I really, really love this about this series because I like sports, mostly action sports like BMX, skateboarding, stuff like that, but also basketball. And I can say with my skill in basketball being that of a third grader, I could say this series shows off basketball very, very well, because it really does. But maybe you're not really into basketball, and maybe you're not even really into sports. That's all good. This series still has a lot of character development and growth for the main character, but it also shows the growth of a team and how people have to work together, because that's something that you definitely have to do when playing a team sport, and it's something that I feel like this manga really showed off. And just like the humility that you have to like kind of develop to an extent when it comes to having to work with other people, and I mean really play with other people, paired with Takehiko Inoue, his art, it just comes down to you know, it creates a formula that could not go wrong. Takehiko Inoue is so legendary as a mangaka and just as an artist. There's a chapter in here that has no words at all, yet Inoue is able to express just such immense feeling. He's able to immerse you so much that you barely even notice. And that was the moment I realized this guy is amazing. Inoue is awesome. Next up, I have Vinland Saga. This series, I remember coming across it once I saw a video from Giguk. That came out in like 2019. I saw it a couple months later, watched the anime, got so into it that I read the manga, and that was like 4 years ago, all the way back in 2020. And over the course of the last few years, it's blown up even more than how popular it was from when I first saw it. The reason why I really got sucked into this right away was because the premise behind the Vikings and like this historical kind of, story. Already that was pretty interesting. But then you get Thorfinn, his quest for revenge, wanting to kill Astrolad, who's a very good antagonist, by the way. And then eventually, once the prologue does end and, Thorfinn kind of mellows out, I was so surprised that the first like 60 chapters were just the prologue to a much larger story that goes a bit more in depth than just like a teenager fighting and having to win battles and stuff like that. And it just goes into this whole thing with self-improvement and finding peace. And I guess the main thing that Thorfinn has to go through is like a path to redemption for all the bad things he's done, for the people he killed, and for who he wants to be. And we see that that path isn't easy at all. There's so many things that hold him back and try to stop him and make him, try and steer him away, but he sticks with it. And it's really that where, I feel like the magic of Vinland Saga truly is. It's what makes it such a great story. And like even with one of the, I think it was like a big meme last year or whenever season 2 came out, the whole I have no enemies being a true warrior, that fits in exactly with this. Thorfinn doesn't have any enemies. He's just a guy who's trying to keep it chill after going through a lot and going through a lot of crazy stuff. Definitely a lot of crazy stuff. It's just that he has to battle a lot to get to the stuff he wants to get to. How do you do that without violence? That's the hard part. The fourth manga is something that is very well known by a lot of people. Berserk. I just gotta say, first of all, rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. He left behind a very great story, and just the legacy that I feel like Berserk has already is awesome. The legacy that Kentaro Miura has is awesome because Berserk has so many great messages within it, and just with the guts, it has a lot of things that makes Vinland Saga so great. I feel like Vinland Saga is very vocal about like Thorfinn trying to be a better person and trying to redeem himself. It's very vocal about that, but I feel like Berserk more than anything just shows us this guy going from this rageful, mean, dark, grim person in some sort of ways, but also how he goes from that to a kinder person. I don't know, he's always a kind person, I feel like, but he's just been through so much that anybody in his position would be angry at the world. And Guts, it's so interesting just how angry he is and how rageful he becomes and how he has to live with that. So I feel like Vinland Saga was more of a story about redemption, while Berserk is more of a story about finding peace, which because of characters like Griffith in here, well, really only because gosh dang it, Griffith, really only because of Griffith, that might not even happen. What's so heartbreaking about the story of Berserk is that, Guts, he finds a place after going through some very tragic and really just bad, nasty stuff throughout his childhood, and a whole bunch of it, a whole bunch of trauma, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And he finds a place where, he just heals. He finds a family, he finds friends, he finds a lover, a place where he does feel like he belongs. And then he gets betrayed in the most horrible way anybody could ever be betrayed. The eclipse, seriously, it was horrible, to say the least. But no, it was really just the development that Gus goes through, the kind of dynamic he has with Griffith, with being full of hate and rage and anger, and how he has to kind of like calm that side down, just to be around the people he loves, trying to ease himself up a bit more. And eventually we see this happen a lot more when he finds another team after the eclipse with I forgot who it is, but I don't know, just the story of Berserk. And even when it comes down to like the not so character writing side of things, just seeing all the monsters, the medieval setting, all the battles, really my favorite part is the supernatural monster side of things. I think that's something that set Miura apart very much from everybody else in the manga scene, but also just how deep he gets with his characters and most of the characters in here that, oh my gosh. It's what makes the messages of Berserk so awesome and so deep. I feel like that's why so many people love this story. But it's also very badass. So if I could sum up Berserk in one word, it's very badass. Let's just say that. I came across Vagabond when Record of Ragnarok started releasing. I remember seeing this one fight between Sasaki Kojiro and I think it was Nikola Tesla, or not, who was it? It was like Poseidon or something. I haven't watched Record of Ragnarok in a while, but pretty much when I saw Sasaki Kojiro, I just couldn't help but think he's very awesome. I started to research him a little bit and I ended up coming across another manga by Takahiko Inoue, Vagabond. And this was actually the first manga I ever read from Takahiko Inoue. This series follows Musashi Miyamoto. He's a very violent person in the beginning. He's very wild, running around, just trying to fight whoever looks at him funny. And he does win a lot of fights. He is tough. But just like Vinland Saga, just like Berserk, this series delves into a character going from this violent person to this person who's at peace with themselves, a kinder person who, you know, appreciates life at least a little bit more. And I think more than anything, that's what this series is about. Something that I thought was very interesting with Vagabond was how it portrayed Sasaki Kojiro. And it's really interesting to see the difference between Sasaki Kojiro and Musashi with their mindset when it comes to being a swordsman. Kojiro is a lot more playful and has this very childlike innocence, even if he does, you know, kill people. That isn't very innocent. But no, when it comes to using the sword, he has like, it seems like he has no hatred for it. When he does battle people, he doesn't look to be violent. He doesn't look to truly hurt them. It's more like he's just in this state of innocence that makes it so that he doesn't use the sword to show off his hatred. And it's really interesting to compare that to Musashi, who growing up, the reason he fought people was because he was angry. He held a lot of resentment. He does hold a lot of resentment towards his dad, anger, trauma, and he has a very different reason for coming at the sword the way he does and using the sword the way he does and trying to be strong and become a better fighter. Eventually he does start to realize that there's no point in doing that, and I think that's, you know, the awesome part about Vagabond is the journey that Musashi has to go through. One of the coolest parts of Vagabond is when Musashi and Kojiro meet and Musashi realizes that he has to be like Kojiro. He has to tap into that childlike innocence that he has experienced, luckily, growing up. He has to go back to that state of mind, state of being, if he wants to become stronger or if he just wants to grow. He can't let his own trauma hold him back, and he just can't let the hatred, all the negative, hold him back. If he ever wants to become as strong as Kojiro, he has to look past all the hate. But I feel like that's kind of the main thing that Inoue was trying to show, was in order for Musashi to beat Kojiro, he had to be more like him, and he also had to become a kinder person, which I think if you've read Vagabond, you know the farming arc. That's one of my favorite arcs in all manga because it does show Musashi maturing a lot more, growing a lot more, and just, you know, being kinder to people, which is awesome. But that's enough of that. Next one, I have Steel Ball Run. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Steel Ball Run, SBR for short. The main reason I like this is because I like men. I don't. No. I'm joking. Steel Ball Run, it takes all the points I just covered with Vinland Saga, Berserk, Vagabond, and it mixes that with Araki's very creative writing style. First of all, I'd like to say SBR is one of the most unique stories I've ever read. Just in terms of, you know, the way the fights are handled, and just from like all the fights alone, I think this manga would be good, to be honest. But the reason why this series gets brought up so much and why it's so popular is because just like Berserk, Vagabond, Vinland Saga, it dives very deep into the character side of things. And that's where, you know, this manga, where SBR really shines through. The two main characters you see are Gyro Zappelli, who is my favorite, and Johnny Joestar, who is the JoJo in this part. You know, it's very funny that a lot of my favorite series have this character going from this, you know, very immature or maybe this very angry person, and then going from that to being this, at least a kinder person in most of these cases, and someone who appreciates life a bit more. And that's exactly what happens with Johnny Joestar. He's immature in the beginning, and he's also in a wheelchair, which I was very surprised by, because this story is about a race. Yeah, Araki, great choice. Have the main JoJo in this part be in a wheelchair for the majority of the time, while he has to go across the entire country. But no, Johnny Joestar goes through a lot of trauma with his family, with his dad, and it's seeing how he has to change from being this immature kid to, you know, being this much more level-headed person and really growing up. I think why the series is so awesome isn't just because of that, it's also because of the JoBro, Gyro Zappelli, who is, in my opinion, really the best deuteragonist, the best side character in all of manga. Gyro Zappelli serves as sort of not only Johnny's friend, Johnny's best friend probably, but also as a mentor to Johnny. And it's this dynamic that is so fun to just see throughout the 90-something chapters that are in SBR. It's really seeing how these two develop side by side with each other and how they push each other to be better. Something that was actually pretty interesting about this series is that Araki kind of takes a look at fatherhood. You know, Gyro Zappelli, he comes from a line of executioners who use the golden rotation, which is just a weird ability. His father has a very large effect on him. And seeing how Gyro has to deal with, you know, the amount of pressure that gets placed on him, his whole motivations for taking part in the Steel Ball Run race, I think that's also a piece that makes him really one of my favorite characters in the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And it's taking a look at his motivations and comparing that to Johnny. It's seeing that Gyro is more mature than Johnny that makes you look at Gyro and just be like, I love this man. And seeing how he teaches Johnny to, you know, be more like him, be more mature, and doing that while just being a friend to Johnny, it's very nice because Johnny, you know, he also has daddy issues, and I mean for good reason with some of the stuff that happens. But I love stories that dive into very personal aspects of life, and Araki is able to do that while keeping his, you know, keeping what he's most famous for probably, and that is his very creative fights, his very creative power system and stand abilities. And when you tie all this together, you come out with not only a masterpiece of a story, but also gay lovers and just something that is very batshit insane while also being very introspective, which I feel like that is very hard to do. Araki just hit the nail on the head with SBR. After reading every single part of JoJo's and, you know, making videos on each and every single part, I can say this is the best one. Does that mean that other parts don't have this? No, it's just that I feel like SBR does it so well that I can't help but say that's the best. At long last, I'm down to the final manga. I just know this video is gonna take me so long to edit. I'm sorry guys. I'm a lazy editor, so this video is probably gonna come out like 3 weeks after my JJK one. Editing Thunder, someone has to thank you, and that is me. I'm patting you on the back right now. At number 1, I have Tokyo Ghoul. Now this series is very, very personal with me. It's really the main series that got me into manga, and I remember when I first started watching anime and stuff, my little brother was the one who introduced me to it. It was one of the first few anime I started watching, and I really started to like it, and I think I did watch it all the way up to Route A, and I just remember liking it a lot and really getting into it. You know, the story follows Kaneki, who's this 20-year-old guy who's in college. I think he's 18 at the start of the story, I don't know. But at the start, he's just your everyday average Joe. He likes to read, he's very shy. But due to trying to be with a woman for the first time, he immediately gets the worst luck imaginable. He pulls a 10 out of 10 baddie for the wrongest of reasons, and she tries to eat him, and then due to an unfortunate accident, he gets thrown into an entirely new world. His life changes forever. You know, he turns into a Tokyo Ghoul. The end. But really, in Tokyo Ghoul, there's humans and there's ghouls, and the ghouls are man-eating monsters. At least that's what they're portrayed as first. And it's with Kaneki that we get to see that the ghouls aren't exactly as they're portrayed as. Actually, most of them just seem pretty chill. And so we get Kaneki living this double life, trying to be a human while also being what humans call monsters, a ghoul. Someone who has to eat humans or eat parts of humans or something to sustain themselves. And even though the ghouls eat humans and are stronger than humans, they're kind of like the underside of society. So really, I think what the series does best, what Tokyo Ghoul does best, is showing a lot of very cool themes, but also the theme of coexistence. It's a very cool theme in this story that Ishida tries to show. And if you didn't know, this series is by Sui Ishida, who is also the guy who made Choujin X. I just appreciate Sui Ishida so much. I'm so thankful for him. This is definitely where Sui Ishida showed off his art the most, show how great of an artist he is. But no, Tokyo Ghoul has a lot of the things I like about manga. It has a lot of cool themes. It has great characters, very great character writing. I think eventually I want to come back and reread Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul read it all over again and do a whole video over the characters and just some things within it. But I haven't touched the series in a couple of years, which is sad because it's my #1 most favorite manga. So, hopefully I have a Tokyo Ghoul video coming out at some point in the future. I really need to reread this, but I've read it like at least 6 times at this point, and each and every time I feel like I've seen something new. The main thing it did with me is kind of just show me what I like with manga. And I mean, you could even see that with all the other manga on my list, that Tokyo Ghoul has at least one piece of each of them. Like, it's as crazy as Chainsaw Man, as Gantz. It has very cool character writing like Berserk, Vagabond, all that. And it has a very cool sense of style, which is something I didn't mention with Clover. But oh man, the style that Sui Ishida has with his art is just woo. If it isn't clear that I'm glazing Sui Ishida, I just want to make that very clear now, that this man deserves to be glazed 24/7. So yeah, it just is a great story, to say the least. And at some point, I'll definitely make a video talking about why it means so much to me. But I guess here I want to mention that it's just very personal to me because, like I said, it's the manga that got me into manga. Although there is problems with the anime, with how it's been done. It doesn't even follow the manga exactly, especially in Route A. But the manga is just, it's so nice. I remembered reading this week to week. It was very late into the second part of Tokyo Ghoul, Tokyo Ghoul Re. It was like chapter 160 or something, stuff like that. And really, one of the main reasons why I have this is at #1 is not only because it's the manga that got me into manga, but without it, this channel would have never been created. I remember back when I was reading it week to week, I was watching this one guy, Sufferance, and again, it was also my little brother that introduced me to Sufferance, who is another manga YouTuber. He's very awesome. He's pretty cool. But from that, I just delved into manga a lot more. I started reading stories a lot more and started appreciating stories a lot more for what they are. But I also, because of Sufferance, I saw some other manga YouTubers like The Masked Man, Scamboli, who does more anime stuff, but is still pretty sick. And that's kind of the reason why I started this channel, was because I just like talking about manga. Really, I want to make this video because I hit 1,000 subscribers a while ago. I just like making videos, and I just like yapping and talking about the things I like to do, the manga I like to read, the games I come across, the games I like to play. I don't know, to all those watching, to all those who have been with me since day one, since 2 years ago, and to all you who have come at a later time, maybe you found me with my Choujin X video or my manga recommendations video, or maybe you're just now finding me with this video. I just like to say thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, thanks for leaving comments and leaving likes and just supporting me, because I've just gone through a whole bunch of stuff, really stupid stuff with just life in general. But one thing I've started to learn, especially making videos again and being more consistent, is that no matter what, as long as one person wants to hear me talk about the stuff I like, then I'm always going to make videos, just because this is the stuff I love to do. It's become very personal to me, just talking about these stories that I like. And I don't know, I just found out I love doing this. I'm gonna keep making videos over the stuff I like. I'm always gonna be talking about anime and manga, at least to some extent, but I know in the future, if you guys start to see me talk about other things, really just anything I'm liking or any of my hobbies, then I hope you stay tuned, because I appreciate all of you. Is there anything else I want to say? Really, just thank you. That's really about it. Thank you, all of you guys. You guys are awesome. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one, and peace.